Hi, this is Dr. Sana Hashmi. This week in my print on China column, I analyzed China's response to the ongoing crisis in the Middle East, particularly to the recent escalation of tensions between Israel and Iran. So, China, that has long projected itself as a responsible power, as a peace broker, specifically in the Middle East, and especially after brokering the Iran-Saudi Arabia deal last year, is now failing to de-escalate tensions in the Israel-Hamas conflict, wherein more countries such as Iran and Lebanon are being embroiled in. So China's potential influence and role in mediating in the Middle East is again a topic of discussion after tensions heightened, specifically in the aftermath of Iran's retaliatory drone and missile attack on Israel. And there's also a high probability that even despite the escalation of tensions there, China is not even going to intervene, and there are chances that there will be an all-out war in the Middle East. So as far as China's response is concerned, its initial response was to urge the relevant parties to exercise restraint to prevent further escalation. And just 2 days after the attack, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi spoke to his Iranian counterpart and condemned the attack on the Iranian consulate in Damascus on 1st April. And he denounced it as a clear violation of international law, and he also said that it was utterly unacceptable. In fact, some of the Chinese officials, they even drew parallel between the attack on Iran's consulate on April 1st and NATO bombing of the Chinese embassy in Belgrade in 1999. However, Wang Yi refrained from using harsh language against Israel in the telephonic conversation. So from this, uh, it actually implies that China's approach and statements show that it is less likely to intervene in the conflict as of now. And this is particularly interesting given China has been advocating for a Gaza ceasefire amid the West support for Israel. It is less inclined to intervene also because it does not yield as much influence on Israel, that is an ally of the US and that is supposed to be closer to the West than China. Interestingly, China's response to Iran-Israel conflict is in total contrast with the US and much of the West response. So China and the US different responses are also due to the ongoing great power rivalry. So China's strategic alignment appears to prioritize relationship with countries that are overtly critical of the US. So this is also one of the reasons why China is getting closer to Iran and is reluctant to criticize Iran. So while China has actively positioned itself as a mediator for peace, particularly in the Middle East, where it seeks to diminish the US influence and its presence, its ambitions face obstructions occasionally diverging from its stated goals. So the words do not really match actions in the Middle East for China. So these obstacles stem from China's own interest and partnerships in the region. So apart from the US factor, apart from how it is not willing to criticize even Iran, one of the other factors, and a very important factor, has been that China is emerging as the top importer of Iranian oil. And last year, 90% of Iran's oil actually went to China amid the US sanctions. So for China, what is important is to prioritize the preservation of existing deal. Then this is definitely going to impact China's credibility if something has to happen to Saudi-Iran deal. So this is one of the reasons why China has been showcasing and exhibiting cautious approach in comparison to embarking on intricate negotiations with respect to Israel-Hamas conflict, as well as the current situation involving Iran. So it actually also shows that China's influence has been very limited among number of other stakeholders. So for this Saudi and Iran deal, in fact, on the same day when Wang Yi had the conversation with his Iranian counterpart, he also called the Saudi foreign minister. And he emphasized that Iran's actions were not aimed at the countries in the region. So it was actually, in a way, to show that Iran wasn't really against countries in the region, particularly Saudi Arabia. So while focusing on pre-existing deals, China wants to abstain from pursuits and actions where its influence is limited. And there is a potential that perhaps if China is not being able to successful, it might lead to credibility issues for China in the region. So since the conclusion of Iran-Saudi Arabia deal, China's capacity to mediate conflict had been very, very limited. Be it Russia-Ukraine war, be it Israel-Palestine conflict, we haven't really seen much from the Chinese side after March 2023. So while China is apprehensive about potential spillover effects of both the conflicts, it currently appears disinclined to actively intervene in any of these conflicts. And Beijing's strategy involves, as of now, delicately balancing its alignment with regional partners while also not having a direct confrontation with Israel. Even though China has been criticizing Israel, but the purpose and objective is not to perhaps confront Israel directly. So the primary aim is to safeguard its interest and prevent any disruption to Tehran and Riyadh deal, while also keep bolstering ties with Iran. Then, apart from that, China also grapples with a number of issues right now. China's economy is slowing down. There are economic challenges, and then apart from that, there are complex situations that have been uh, witnessed by China, such as in the South China Sea as well as in the Taiwan Strait. So, in such a scenario, active involvement in the Middle East for China is certainly not on the cards for now. So this stance also highlights China's cautious approach as well as prioritization of its own interest. It also implies that assuming what China keeps talking about of China being a responsible stakeholder, responsible power, as well as a mediator in the Middle East is something that China does not really practice. And we are also not going to see any level of intervention negotiation that China is going to embark in the Middle East. Where I do feel that in the contemporary times, for China, assuming the role of a peace broker in Israel Hamas conflict is definitely not on the cards. China has definitely put it on the back burner. So that's all for today. Thank you for reading my column and watching the video. Thank you.